Hello, everyone who's joined. Thank you for coming along to this webinar. It's the first of a series that we're hoping to run over the next couple of months that might come as news to the panelists. But this is the first of kind of 5 webinars like this that we want to run to hopefully guide you through the UCAS process and give you a bit of insight into what it's really like to go to university. Those of you who haven't made their minds up on whether or not they want to go, and to give those who have made their minds up a bit more information on what it's really like. A lot of you will have received an email from me over the last while offering kind of one-to-one or small group conversations with people who go to universities that you're considering going to. That offer is still very much on the table. So if anyone wants to drop me an email with specific universities or specific courses they're looking into studying or studying at, let me know, and hopefully some of our alumni can help us out with telling you a little bit about their course and their experience at those universities. But for the meantime, we've gathered a wonderful panel of students you can see in front of you, all at different universities, studying different things at different stages in their studies, who are going to tell you a little bit about their experiences today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a second, and then we've got some pre-prepared questions that we'll run through that have come from you guys from year 12s and 13s all across the country from the schools we work at. And we'll start answering those questions. But if you guys have any questions whatsoever, just use the little Q&A box as you go, and I'll ask those questions to the panelists who'll hopefully be able to give you an answer. Ask the questions at any point, and yeah, that's all there is to cover. As I said in the email to everyone who I invited, this webinar will be recorded and I'll send you all a copy of it afterwards. Don't worry if you have to pop off earlier if you joined a little bit late. Right, guys, I will hand over to our panelists to introduce themselves. Ollie, just because you're beside me on my screen, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. My name's Ollie, and I'm a first-year economics and econometrics student at the University of York. I'm originally from the Isle of Wight, and I went to Christ the King College in Newport. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say, but I chose York because it's far away, and I sort of wanted this connection from the Isle of Wight because it gets quite claustrophobic. And yeah, that's about it.
Fab. Sophie?
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm at Queen Mary's University of London, which is a campus uni in like zone 2 of London. So it's a couple of tube stops from Central. I'm a first year and I'm studying English. I chose Queen Mary because it's a group and it's in the middle of London, which is amazing. You've just got everything around you, everything you could ever need, and it's really fun here. I'm from Bournemouth originally, so it's quite a quiet place. So it's much better here in London. If you like something like a little bit busier, where there's a bit.
Fab. Sophia, let's go someone slightly further into their studies. Shika.
I'm Sophia. I'm a third-year economics student at the University of Edinburgh. And I'm doing a 4-year course because it's a Scottish Masters, which everyone in Scotland, if they're doing a degree, is doing a Scottish Masters. It's always 4 years. And I come from Lincoln Christ Hospital School in the East Midlands.
And off you go. Oh.
Wait, was that me? Sorry.
Yes, it was.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. So I'm Ethan. I'm a first-year accounting and finance student. I'm at the University of Portsmouth. Like Sophie, I'm from Bournemouth. Yeah, I ended up here because I didn't get into my first choice, which was Southampton. But yeah, it's still a good uni.
Thank you. And Sam, last but not least.
Hi, I'm Sam, and I am a 4th-year maths and stats student at Warwick. Warwick's a campus university, and I originally came here because, like Ollie, I'm from the Isle of Wight, and I wanted to get away from it, but I also wanted to be around everything. So that's why I chose a campus uni in the Midlands, basically.
Fab, amazing. My first question is going to pick up on the campus versus city university. It's something that I know a lot of students have asked us about recently. Sam, you obviously think it's a positive then, that's why you decided to go to a campus university. Do you still think that 3 years in, 4 years in?
Yeah, I do, to be honest with you, because the good thing about campus university is that I I sort of treat it like a workplace in a sense. I go there at, well, most days I go there at 9 a.m. and I come back at 5 p.m. and then everything is within sort of a 10-minute walk of everything. And so you can treat it like a working day, and it helps me to sort of separate uni life from home life, and it gives me structure, and it allows me to basically get my work done in a sensible time frame. And that's why I like the campus uni.
Makes sense. Is anyone at a city-based university? I want to talk a
Can I
little
just
bit
add on
about
to
that.
the campus thing?
Yeah, definitely. Please go
Because
for it, Ollie.
I've sort of got like sort of an opposite experience, because my accommodation is literally 2 floors above the lecture halls, because it's a campus university as well. So you can't really separate the work and life sort of thing. It's quite difficult.
Did you know
So I think it sort of
that?
depends what university you're at, I think.
Definitely. Did you know that that was where your accommodation was when you were applying to it and choosing it, or was that a surprise?
So I got put in my bottom choice accommodation, so it hasn't been particularly great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sophia, you're at a city-based university, right?
Yeah, I'm at Edinburgh, which is like a city university. So how it works is just like the buildings are just scattered around the university, and the city, and then you just make your way around. But Edinburgh is quite a small city, so everything, if you're in central, it's sort of easy to move around and stuff. So I thought that like it's quite a nice mix between the both of them, because it's like a city, but it's like close enough that you can commute and stuff. And with Scotland, there's free buses as well. And in a lot of like major cities like Manchester and stuff, like you could get free buses. So that's like an up of like, if you don't want to walk the 30 minutes that it takes to like the STEM campus, which is like just down the road, and like everyone just walks that way. So you can make a lot of friends down that way. I would say that like for me, city's been really good, because like there's a lot of activities that you can do, and with Edinburgh being a capital city, there's always activities, and there's always something on, which I quite like, because then you can make a lot of friends that way, just being like, oh, I really want to go to like the cocktail festival, or like there's like crazy golf that we could do. So I think that like cities, I would choose city over campus.
For those of you who are earlier on in your studies, thinking back to last year when you were applying to university, was campus versus city something you considered? Was it, a deciding factor in where you applied? Sophie's nodding.
Yeah, definitely. I really wanted a campus uni, just for convenience. I love that like I can get up in the morning and my lectures are 30 seconds away, like round the corner. There's no commute time. If you've had a late night, it doesn't really matter. You can still get to your lectures very easily. It's easier to meet as well. At Queen Mary's, it's a bit different because most London unis are city-based. I think Queen Mary's is one of the only unis in London that's got a campus, but we have a student village where all the housing is, and it makes it so much easier to meet people just because you're all in one place, which I preferred over Bristol, which I had an offer from, which is a city-based uni.
Makes sense. We'll touch on kind of meeting people and getting to know people soon, because I know that's something that's on everyone's mind who's considering moving. But touch on that kind of year 13s and in UCAS and deciding on universities, other than city versus campus, what were the main things you guys looked into when you were picking your course in your university?
The actual modules themselves for the course, because they can vary quite a lot between universities. So making sure you got like that right course was a big thing for me.
And did the fact that you could kind of choose modules at certain point in your studies, was that something you took into account? Was that something you wanted from the get-go, Ethan, or was that?
Yeah, well, it just gives you more options. So even if there are parts of a course you don't like, the optional modules give you that chance to change, and you can specialize in certain areas more. Because some degrees they can cover like a very broad spectrum of stuff, but those optional modules let you specialize a bit more.
Definitely. And Ollie, I interrupted you. You were going to add to the question about why how you chose the university you wanted to go to.
Oh no, it's okay, don't worry. I was just
The same thing, similar thing. What, guys, talk us through so modules have been touched on. So talk us through the structure of your course. How are you assessed? How are you taught? What's it like? Very vague question, I know, but
I have lectures and seminars. So Mondays and Tuesdays I have off. Then Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, each day I have one 1 hour lecture and 1 2 hour seminar. So it comes to about 8-9 hours a week, which is obviously a lot less than school. And then we're assessed for English. It's mostly coursework, so it's essay based. We're not taking actual exams, which is quite nice because we get told the essays and the exams weeks and weeks and weeks before, so it makes it quite easy to keep up with work and get on top of things, which is quite nice.
In terms of modules, how my university works is that you have 120 credits, which I think is like similar to most unis. And then modules are ranked between like 10 or 20. So they have 10 credit courses are like less meant to be less work, and then 20 obviously more work. And then you can take 40 credit courses, which can like last the whole year. So you have 2 semesters of teaching, at least for me. And then you tend to want to balance that out because you don't want to have too many modules in one term and then not a lot in the other, because you'll be stressed in that one term. So that's how modules work in my university, at least. And then you can, in my first year, you could choose a lot of modules that aren't within your degree, because it's a 4-year course for me. So like, for example, I took a Spanish course, and like you can do like a philosophy, like a first year philosophy course, because, and then just sort of like integrate that, because you don't have too many compulsory courses just yet, and you don't have to like whittle down to what you want to do. So that's how my university works in terms of modules.
Just to build on that, mine was actually like very similar, but almost like the opposite to that. So in my first year, I had no choice of what I could do. It was literally, these are all compulsory. Same with the 120 credits thing. I had 10 12 credit modules, sorry, that I had to do, and that was it. And I could take extra ones if I wanted to, but there wasn't really a massive advantage to doing so. And then once I got to second year, I took an optional philosophy one, and then I also took Spanish in third year. And so yeah, basically it's the same, but opposite way around. I could choose at the end, but not at the start.
Interesting. And obviously, Sophie, you touched on it briefly, kind of contact hours and how it differs from school. How do you cope with that? Was that a big jump? Was that something that, you know, you're still trying to get used to, having kind of limited contact hours and a lot of it being independent work?
I think it's quite nice because you get a lot more of your own time to study how you want to study, rather than it being like structured assignments and homework every week. You're just studying how you want to study and how you find best. You do have to be quite dedicated with it and quite disciplined with it. But if you can get your head around that, then it's fine. The lecturers are always there to help, and the seminar leaders are really nice, and they're always there to give you help if you need it.
That's really useful. It actually touches on sort of answers one of the questions from our attendees. Is the transition from A-level to university big? Those of you who've just started university, what have you found? We obviously spoke about it a little bit before any of the attendees joined the call. Compare A-levels to university.
Well, for me so far, I've mostly been doing like recap of A-level maths and economics, so it's been quite easy so far. But I think it gets harder as you go along, definitely into like the latter half of first year, and definitely second and third year. It's going to get harder.
I would say in terms of like the independent studies, like it's just like A-levels. Like you've got your lectures or your like teaching time, and then you've got your free time to just like build on that, because it's all up to you. Like there's no one watching over you, which can be like quite daunting, but it is exactly just like A-levels. But you just got to do a lot more research, and I would say it's about like the same amount of work that you would do at like school. Like the transition in terms of that isn't that hard. Like everyone always says that GCSEs to A-levels is like a harder transition than A-levels to uni. just because you're already learning that independent study skills and stuff like that. It's just harder in terms of balancing it with like a newfound social life and like independence.
Before we get on to the kind of social side of things, there's another question here which you kind of answered, Sophia, on workload, but obviously if we know what kind of contact hours you all have, how many hours on top of that of independent work do you think you do? Do you have a rule per module? How do you kind of structure that independent time and manage your workload?
So we were always told that our degree is meant to be like a full-time job, so it's sort of 35 to 40 hours a week. And at the moment I do 4 modules this term, so I'm doing 10 hours ideally each week of each module, and it just sort of works out to a 9 to 5 day, and that's how I try and structure it, which I guess is probably very similar to what it is at A level. I mean, you'd probably 9 till 3 A level at school, but then after that you then go home, you might do revision or you might do homework or whatever. So in terms of workload, it is similar, and you can get by doing the same amount. But you can also put in extra work, and I know people who also coast as well. People who do less work don't tend to do as well, but you know, I see them having a great time. So
Balance. Anyone else, anything to add on kind of managing workload? Because there's another question in here about like finding the motivation to study. Did you find that easier at university than you did during A levels?
I personally think I personally think it's much easier to study here because my course, I find it so much more interesting, and it just covers the topics that I'm generally interested in. A levels, you've got to pick, you know, you pick your different subjects, and they can still vary. So necessarily you might have 1 or 2 that you're not super interested in, and especially with looking at the modules specifically for my course. I just find it much more interesting, so I find the motivation kind of comes there with it.
Have you all had a similar situation or similar experiences, so you're all kind of nodding along?
I would say that I found it easier in A level just because there was more of a structure, but once you've put yourself into that structure and like hold yourself accountable and like sort of find friends to study with, because sometimes it will just be like it gets quite boring to like study by yourself. So you get like those little breaks. It's like, oh, should we go for a coffee? Just have those little incentives to stay in the library and stay out of your flat. I think that's like the biggest thing, is like not studying at your flat, because that's like, try and keep it separate sort of thing, because then you'll just want to not do work if you're like mixing social side and your like studies. But like, do it, if you want to do it with your friends, just do it at the library, I would say. And it helps you like keep you motivated, and like keeps you like, oh, someone will hold me accountable if I just go on my phone all day.
Understand.
I fully agree with that. I in my second year that was when like COVID was at its peak, and so like nobody really left their houses, and so I imagine that was your first year, Sophia. It was hard to motivate myself, and I think now that I'm allowed out and about to, you know, go to the library, go to campus each day, like I said earlier, doing that 9 to 5 and splitting work life from uni life, from home life, it just makes it a lot easier to motivate yourself, because once you're there, you're in work mode essentially, and when you come home, you know, you can relax.
Let's turn off from work mode for a little bit, right? Because, you know, you can read a lot about what it's like to study at university and how to get the motivation for it. Let's talk about life outside studying. I know it all kind of blurs into one. Sophia, you talked about it, right? Studying with your friends in different places. How did you meet the people you know at university? How did you make friends? The question on everyone's lips.
I personally have a flat with 11 people. So we all have ensuite rooms, but there's 11 people in the flat. And I found that was the easiest way to meet people, to go in the kitchen, which is like a shared area. And then we all just met in there, talked, and you see these people like every day. And that's how I made my like closest group. And then you start meeting people from other flats in your course, and then you kind of build it up from there. But I think everyone, like when you get to university, everyone's looking to make friends. So it's really not that difficult or that daunting, because everyone's in the same position and everyone's really kind and friendly and like looking to make friends.
Everyone nodding. Similar experiences all around? Or what about Sam and Sophia? What about you guys? Obviously, you know, first year meeting people, it does tend to be the people you live with or your course mates, because that's who you see, right? The most of. What have you found moving through university?
So I live. So as a fourth year, most people have already graduated, but I live with other people who I live with in first year. So that's how I found you make your closest friends. It's always the flatmates, but there's so many ways you can make friends at uni. I mean, I play football every Saturday. I play in a football team with people who do stats. So I know a load of people who do stats from football. Trying to think what else. There's also loads of societies. There's like, I'm quite into football, so there's like a one for match day. They go and watch football. Literally, like the possibilities are endless. Literally, like there's so many ways you can make friends. There's so many options.
For me, it was like quite different just because it was during COVID. But like it made it like, well, the friends that you made were a lot deeper. And like my advice is like, in your first year, everyone wants to make friends, so you can put yourself out there. But then if you're not, it's hard to like differentiate with like different types of friends, like friends that you're like getting really close to. And if you don't find them by like first year, like it literally doesn't matter. Like most of my friends in first year like aren't like my closest friends. They're from people from I've met throughout the journey. It's like you'll see so many people with friends with Freshers Week that will like disappear. So like don't like get down about it, because you'll meet people all throughout your years. Like I've got like so many different friendship groups, and like the people I hang out with every day just like has changed through so much, just even in my third year. Like it's so different from every semester. So like I know it's a big worry, but like you will meet people. Like everyone is in the same situation as you. You've just got to maybe put yourself out there and like invite people to your flat. And how you attract people that you want to be friends with is just doing the things that you want to do. So if you're not a big going out person, don't go out to make friends, if you get me. Like if you like to go out, then go out and make friends. But if you like going to films, then invite people to go to films with, not just be like, oh, I want to go on a night out sort of thing.
A lot of people say that, don't they? You get to university and you start to meet people who are actually interested in the same thing as you, and not that your friends from home aren't, but you're kind of friends because you grew up in the same area and you were in the same class in school in a lot of cases. But at university you get to meet people with a variety of interests. You've all touched on it briefly, but I know that one of the big things that a lot of these people will be thinking about is accommodation, right? You hear some horror stories about university accommodation. Talk us through kind of first year. Were you all in halls, private, campus halls? Talk us through it.
Go first if you
want. Guys.
Go on, Sophie, you go first.
So I'm in uni halls, like I said, with 11 people, but we've all got our own room and ensuite. It's okay. The fire alarms are really annoying. They go off every morning at like 4:30 in the morning, and everyone has to leave the building. But genuinely, it is really good to make friends, really good to meet loads of different people. The bathrooms are not the best. Like I have like a shower room. It's not even like an actual like shower. It's just like a shower head in the room. But like my actual room is quite nice, and it's like biggish. And it's not, for London, it's not that expensive because it's on campus, which I was quite pleased about.
Ethan and Ollie, what about you guys? And then we'll talk a little bit more about accommodation as you move through uni.
Yeah, so I'm in a flat with 16 people, and it's a shared toilets as well. So there's 8 people per toilet, so it can get a bit messy. But other than that, it's not actually. I think people make it seem worse than it actually is. I don't think it's actually that bad if you get people to to clean up after themselves, especially in the kitchen as well. It's not as bad as people say it is. So far,
Ethan.
at least.
So far, Ethan. What about you? What have you found?
So yeah, I found it's all been good really. I'm with 7 people. We've got ensuite, shared kitchen. Yeah, this is like I'm in like a standard room. It's fine. It does the job. It's nothing special. But once you know, move in, get your stuff, put some posters up, whatever, it feels quite nice. And yeah, we all get along. It's all right.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So Sam and Sophia, then obviously, Sophia, this is what you're. Well, did you over COVID? Did you have to find houses anyway? What was the situation? You've both had to go through, right, and move out of halls, I'm guessing. Talk people through that.
Do you want me to go first? I'll go first. So my first year, again, halls, I had an ensuite and I shared a flat with 14 people. Like Ollie said, like I had to share a kitchen with 14 people, not a bathroom to be fair, but sometimes you just have to nudge people to like wash up after themselves, clean the side after they've used it, and it generally is fine. Beyond first year though, I've stayed in rented accommodate, like private rented accommodation with landlords who are that's always an interesting one. It's a bit of a lottery sometimes if you get a good or a bad landlord. I've been quite lucky with it though. I've had all right landlords all the way through. And I'd say one of the biggest drawbacks to university I found was when you go to pick accommodation for your second year, at least at my uni at Warwick, you have to pick very early. Like we had to decide who we wanted to live with and put deposits down on like a house before Christmas. And at that point, we'd been living with the people, you know, who we were choosing to live with for another year for a grand total of like 5 weeks, well, a bit more than 5 weeks. But that is one of the biggest downsides. And you can end up living with people that you don't necessarily, like you find out a couple of weeks later that you know, they're not really who you thought they were. You don't like them. And what I'd say is just be very careful who you pick a house with this is to you guys in first year too. Be careful who you pick to choose your next house with. It's so hard to judge what people are like, and don't put yourself in that trap where you end up having to live with someone for a year that you don't want to live with. Because I know a lot of people who have been through it.
What about you, Sophia?
Yeah, in my first year, like it's quite different in Edinburgh, like because it's like a city, but like it's so small. So my flat in first year, it was student accommodation, but it was only a flat of two, so it was me and another person. But it was like fine. We were both quite clean, and it was quite nice. And it's different also because in Scotland there's more power to the renters. So we got to choose like after May, and I would say that like December is so quick. Everyone that I know that in England that had to move out was like, we don't know, like they've fallen out with their flatmates and stuff, and just be very careful. And it's very soon, but also just get ahead of the curve, just because I'm not sure you're aware as being year 13s, but like there is like a housing crisis right now. So like wherever you go, it's going to be quite difficult. Like I know people that are having to be put up in Airbnbs and hostels and stuff. So it's quite stressful, but accommodation all in all is like, it's so much nicer in second and third year that I found, because you're with people that you like want to be around with constantly. And it's just make sure that you can separate all the like your friendship between all the like little like quarrels about like the bits and stuff, just because like it can affect a friendship, I would say.
It's a learning curve, definitely. There is a question in here about pricing and accommodation, right? You'll all have very different experiences of this. If you're in London, you know, everyone's different parts of the country. Has it been a shock pricing wise? I'm aware of time, so keep answers short and sweet, but have you found it difficult to come to terms with what you're paying out, or talk us through it?
Go on, carry on. Sorry.
In London, you get a much higher student loan than anywhere else in the country. So I think the minimum normally is somewhere around 4, but the minimum student loan for London is 6, and the max is 12.5. So you do get like significantly more in London. Because when I was in year 13, I had a lot of people trying to put me off London, saying it was too expensive. I won't get to do anything. But they did factor in that your student loan is quite a bit higher. Obviously, I haven't started looking at second year housing yet, but my accom is the same, if not less money than a lot of my friends around the south who are in like Bristol and Exeter. Here, the accommodation was a lot cheaper, but the food prices are more expensive by a fair bit. Clubbing tickets are like almost triple the price of normal places. Drinks out are like literally like 4 times the price of anywhere else. It is a lot coming out. The student loan does help though, and you can get bursaries as well if you need them from different courses. You can apply for bursaries, which really helps.
Does anyone have a part-time job? Sophia?
Yeah.
Do you work?
Yeah, I worked last year as well. It's just to help with accommodation because we don't get the extra bursary, but we have the fun high prices of having a capital city as well. So it's like equal in like terms of club tickets and stuff like that, but we don't get our bursary. But it's not too bad. Like the accommodation, especially like here, that it's quite subsidized. As at least it was in my first year. And it's just when you move out that it gets a bit more expensive, and like as long as you budget well, I think I wouldn't need a part-time job. Well, it just depends on like how much maintenance loan that you get, but like I feel like having a part-time job isn't that big of a setback because most people at uni have a part-time job, especially in Edinburgh, like just because it's so expensive, so like you don't miss out too much on the social side.
It's another good way to socialize, right? But would you all kind of just nod or shake your heads? Would you all agree that, you know, you've had support from universities in terms of kind of finances? Is that something you find you've got? Yeah. So, well, Sophia's not quite sure, but it's not a deal breaker. Would any of you say it's a deal breaker? No. Good to know. I think closer to the time when we do another one of these webinars, we will dig a bit more into finances when people are kind of drilling down into final choices and accepting offers, etc. But to kind of wrap up then, guys, what was the biggest surprise for you arriving at university? I think you can all answer this question because Sophia and Sam, even though you're further in, you'd COVID, right? So you had kind of 2 years of suspended education. What was the biggest surprise?
For me, it was like my first lecture literally a month ago, and then I was looking around in my lecture theatre and like I recognized a lot more people than I thought that I would, like just meeting them from the first 2 years. Like you'll see someone a night out and they're like, oh, I do economics, or like my friend will go on a date and like she's like, oh, he does economics, and then I look around and they're all there and I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
It's a smaller world than you think. Ethan, what about you? You haven't been there that long, but anything that surprised you?
Right, it's going to sound a bit weird, but kind of how randomly you meet some people. Like on my first week here, I met a guy that I see quite a lot now on my course at a club when we were both getting searched next to each other. Like you meet people in the most random ways. I've met people like by the lifts or literally in the lifts or in the laundry room. It's random, but it's quite entertaining.
What about you, Ollie? What's been your experience in your first few weeks? Anything?
How expensive circuit laundry is a crime, honestly. It's just not worth it. I might have to start washing my clothes in the sink. I don't know.
Get a little washing line in your room.
Yeah.
So thinking back then, if you could go back and choose your degree, your course, and or where you're studying again, what are the top 3 things that you'd consider? Do you think you'd choose what you're doing, or do you think there's anything you'd change? Heavy question. Sam, off you go. Use the hindsight.
So the first thing I would go with would definitely be making sure it's something I enjoy. That is the most important thing. You're going to be doing this for 3 years. And if you don't like it, it's going to be a long 3 years. That's my first bit of advice. My second bit of advice is don't worry about making friends. Everyone's in the same boat. Everyone needs to make friends on that first day, or not even in the first day. You know, you've got ages. I make friends now from people I do maths. So one of my housemates does history. I've got a load of people who are my friends who do history, a couple of engineers, a couple of Portuguese people, because one of my housemates is Portuguese. You meet people all the time. And so don't worry about making friends, even if you don't make them in the first day. You know, there'll be loads of opportunities. And third piece of advice, can I pass on to someone else?
Go for it. Sophie, what about you?
I'm so sorry if you hear banging. There's maintenance in the flat, and I don't the door. They've been here all day. I'd say make sure you join societies, but be careful what you're joining, because the sports ones are very expensive. It's not free like normal. Like I joined netball and I think it was £150 with a dress. Like it's really like extortionate. You do get a lot for your money though. Like there's a lot of training, a lot of matches, but make sure you budget on that. But you do make loads of friends there, and I'd really recommend joining a lot. I do really like London. I would highly recommend it. You've just got everything here. There's things that it's just how much access you have to everything. So I'm studying English. We do Shakespeare at the Globe Theatre's down the road, and we get like free tickets. We get free theatre tickets, like just because everything's so nearby. I know for law, they have like this like court judges coming in, like just because they're down the road. So yeah, I definitely choose to live in London again. I don't think I'd want to go anywhere else.
Ollie, what about you? Any advice you'd give to year 13 you?
I think maybe like aspire to maybe higher universities. I don't know, because I think I was a bit pessimistic at the time, but I ended up doing a bit better than I actually was expecting at A levels. But I'm still happy where I am, so it's all good, really.
Don't stop aiming high. You can still give it a go, right? It's worth it if you 6 options on there. Ethan, anything to add?
Like kind of look into every opportunity, like before university and coming here, because like now, even when I'm here, like there are silly little things. Like I got free sausage rolls today just for replying to an email. Like just look at all these different things before the university, when you're here. Like yesterday, I went to a talk with the co-founder of Starling Bank, and that was really interesting. And like so many people didn't realize just because they didn't check their emails. So like when you're here and before you come, there are lots of different opportunities. So I really recommend just keeping an eye out.
Solid piece of advice for free sausage rolls. Sophia, anything to add before we wrap up?
I would say like don't be afraid to like make the first move in terms of like anywhere, but like in terms of friendships as well, because people are like a lot more shy than you would think, and like sometimes they need the nudge to like be like to make those friends and stuff. Just be like, oh, do you want to go for a coffee? Oh, do you want to go study at the library together? Like that's like my biggest advice, because you have this block of like, oh, they don't want to hang out with me, and then you just do it, and then you have a great time, and if you don't have to see them again.
Good piece of advice. Guys, thank you for that. Time's flown. I mean, as usual, we've probably talked over the time that we said we would, but we'll kind of wrap up now. For everyone watching, these guys can give us loads of insight on career support at university. There are so many things, so many parts of their lives that I'm sure we didn't touch on, and hopefully we will in future sessions. But no other questions are in the Q&A box. I'm going to leave it there for now. You all should have my email address. If you don't, it's laura@thetalenttap.com. And if anyone has any questions for particular panelists in front of you today, just in general that you'd like these guys to answer, please do let us know, and we can answer them when we send out the recording. If not, thank you very, very much for coming. Panelists, thank you. That was great. Ollie, sorry you have to shoot off for a seminar. You'd think the day's over. But yeah, thank you for giving us your time, guys. Really, really appreciate it. And I'll speak to you all very soon. Bye.